Hey everyone, welcome to Fitness Business Growth Podcast. I'm here with Nerida. How are you?
I'm really well, Jamie.
Three-time guest, Newcastle local, the owner of the previous owner of Lasome.
Yes.
Two massive women's gyms in Newcastle.
Yes. Thank you so much. It's so lovely to be here.
And you were the first ever women's only gym in Newcastle.
Yes, we were. And now there are like 20 of them. It's amazing.
So I became aware of you in 2015. We had our locations.
Yep.
And I heard of this gym in Newcastle that was for females only.
Yeah.
They had an amazing community. I thought, that place looks pretty good.
Yeah. Thank you.
So I'd love you to share your origin story of Lasome to exiting those businesses to what you do today, which is emotional intelligence.
Yep.
And what we're going to talk about, which is leadership in business.
Yeah. Beautiful. So it's in a short story, I basically came back from overseas in 2010, really overweight, just really out of shape, bought a house across the road from a CrossFit gym. Back then, no one knew what CrossFit was. And I wanted to go over and sign up. Unlike most people, I had no fear around joining a gym. I just saw these people lifting tires, doing pull-ups, clean and jerks, running, riding. And I was like, wow, that looks really cool. I want to do that. Walked over there and the guy looked me up and down and said, this is not for you.
I hate that so much.
Crazy, hey. And I was just completely humiliated.
So you walked over excited, I'm going to lose this post-holiday weight.
I was literally like, take my money.
Okay.
He could have, he didn't even have to sell me a membership. I was literally, I would have paid any money to train there.
Did you do a session first or?
No, God, no. They wouldn't even let me train.
So you walked in like, hey, what's this thing?
Yeah. I literally was like looking for the owner or the trainer and I was like, how does this work? How much is it? How do I sign up? And, I'll never forget, he looked me up and down and he was like, darling, this is not for you.
That's your superhero origin story.
Yes.
Peter Parker got bitten by a spider.
Yeah.
And a gym owner was really rude to you.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so that happened. And then I just remember every day I'd watch them through my window thinking, God, I wish I could do that. It looks so cool. 6 months later.
So at that point in time, what were you thinking? I'm not good enough?
I was thinking
So you didn't think that guy was even rude. You just thought like he was just being honest.
I just 100%. I was like, oh, I'm not elite enough to train there yet. I'm just like, I'm too out of shape. I'm not fit enough. I just need to get fit first. And so 6 months later, I ran into a friend at a barbecue. He was looking really good. I said, what have you been doing? He said, I've been doing CrossFit. I'm like, I really want to do that. He said, come to my gym. And I said, yes, but deep down I was terrified. And I was thinking, I'm not going to go.
Is this going to happen again?
Yep. And so all week we'd made a plan to go on the Thursday at 5 o'clock. I was so anxious. He messaged me on Thursday and I was thinking, I'm just going to cancel on him. And he messaged me on the Thursday. He said, don't even think about canceling. I'll see you tonight.
That's a good friend.
And I was like, all day I felt sick. And then I drove in and I was sitting in my car. I was literally shaking.
How old were you then?
This was 2010.
2010.
So 15 years ago.
Far out. So you were like late 20s?
Yeah. I was at that gym for a couple of years and then I turned 30. So yeah, I went in there and I had the complete opposite experience. The owner came straight over to me, super friendly. I'm like, hey, Nez, my name's Shannon. Come on in. I'll introduce you to everyone. And I had a really beautiful experience. So the first workout we did was disgusting. It was called Kelly. And it was 5 rounds of 400-meter run, 20 box jumps, 20 pull-ups, 20 burpees. It was gross. And I remember the first run, I was not even halfway and everyone was inside the gym finish. But I'd come from a sporting background. I was really good at not shaming myself. I was just like, you've been eating and drinking like an idiot all around Europe for the last 3 years. You just have to suck it up.
And everyone was nice.
Yeah, I just have to, this is going to take a few months. It's just going to hurt. And I came in and I remember very clearly the last round, everyone had finished, but I had my last round of 20 burpees. And all of a sudden, all these people get down next to me and they're doing an extra 20. And people are counting. So nice. They're like 20, 19, 18. And I'm like, what the hell is this? And we finish. Everyone's high-fiving me. Everyone's like, you did so good. And I was just like, oh my God, what is this place? Became hooked. I joined up and I lost 21 kilos in the first 12 weeks. The weight just fell off me. And not only that, but I found a community and all of a sudden I was hanging around people that weren't drinking alcohol, that were going out for breakfast, talking about reading books, like talking about different things. It was just a shift for me.
I've never asked this question. What were you doing in your career before you founded Lasome?
So I used to work for a waste management company as an area manager. Okay. And I had a really well-paying job and a lot of freedom. So it was really hard to leave, but I was deep down miserable. Like I was deep down really unfulfilled. And so I was at the time,
I want to dive into that.
Yeah.
How long were you unfulfilled, miserable before you pulled the plug?
Oh, years. So back then, I now look at it like everything in my life was a mess. I was with a partner I wasn't meant to be with. I was in the wrong relationship, in the wrong job. My health was out of whack. I got my health on track. That was the first thing. And during that time, I left the relationship. That gave me the confidence to finally leave the relationship. And then about 6 months after that, I remember driving to work one day and I had this sick feeling in my stomach. And I called my boss. I didn't even know I was doing it. And I called him and I resigned on the spot. And he was like, whoa, what are you doing? He said, take a week off. We'll go for lunch. And I was like, no, like I'm done. And he took me for lunch and he said to me, because he thought I was going to a competitor. And I said, no, I'm not. I'm just done. And he said, well, what are you going to do? And I said, I have no idea. And he said, do you know what you should do? You should be a PT. And I laughed. I laughed at him. I said to him, who would train with me? And he said, I don't know, but you light up when you talk about burpees. That's all I know.
Yeah.
So anyway, weirdly enough, I just took a few weeks off, maybe even a month or so. I was at the beach hanging out. I had a little bit of savings. And then one day I was like, okay, I'm just going to go get a job at a cafe down the road. And so I was driving down the street and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I noticed this women's only supplement store. It used to be called Pink Muscle on Derby Street.
No, heard of that.
Oh, I drove past it millions of times but never noticed it. And I thought, oh my God, I don't know anything about supplements, but why don't I go in there and ask if I can get a job? Went in there, ended up getting to know the owner really well. She said, I don't have any work for you, but I was talking to her about training. I was obviously just like, blah.
Yep.
She said, why don't you start a boot camp with me and start training people? And I was like, well, how would I do that? I said, I don't have any gear.
What year is this, sorry?
This is 2014.
2014.
Sorry, 2014.
So I want to unpack that a bit.
Yeah.
Before you called your boss.
Yep.
On your way to work, what was that feeling in your stomach before you had that conversation?
Dread. I felt dread at like going to this place that I hated. And the funny thing was, on paper, I was getting a great salary. I had a company car, company phone. I had so much freedom. All I had to do was check in, get my work done. But I just had this feeling that there was more. Like I was like, what are you doing?
The biggest moment in my life is February 9, 2012, when I quit my fucking job.
Yes.
I hated it so much.
Yeah. It's such a good feeling.
February 2009, Mitch's dad got me the job.
Right.
And I worked there for 3 years. Mitch would ask me, do you enjoy this job? Do you enjoy this job? Yeah, it's great. And then one night he asked me 3 years later, do you like this job? I said, I'm fucking miserable. I hate it. Let's go overseas now.
Yeah.
And I remember that leading up to that moment when I quit, I was unsure what I was doing then.
Yeah.
And I ended up getting a job at Fitness First Chatswood.
Yeah.
And that was the beginning. I took a huge pay cut.
Yes.
Thought I let Chris down because he got me the job. But like, honestly, if you hate your job, you just got to fucking work.
Yeah. So true.
I can't, like, my biggest fear in life is like going back to that call center.
Yeah.
And picking up that fucking phone.
Yes. It's the worst feeling, isn't it?
Like, people are still there.
Yeah.
Not a bad job.
Yeah.
Good job. Good money.
Yeah. Exactly.
I finished at $320.
Yeah.
I was on probably 80 grand a year when I was like 19.
Yeah.
Everyone thought this is fantastic.
Yeah.
But every fucking day I was miserable.
Yeah. I was the same.
Yeah. I know you help people get out of that.
Yes. Yeah.
But like, just there's a, like, I think Mitch often they say, people think we have good lifestyles.
Yeah.
And we do.
Yeah.
But they don't know how good it is.
Yeah.
Like, they don't know that I've had lunch at home the last fucking 10 years.
Yes.
They don't know I can walk my dogs in the day. They don't know I can just dip to the beach. Like, I think if people truly saw what lifestyle you can live as an entrepreneur, a lot more people will take a risk.
I agree. And that's a funny thing. So many people want to leave their 100K jobs and go straight into a 100K year as an entrepreneur. It doesn't work that way. You've got to take the pay cut. You've got to sweat it out. You've got to have the hard times. And like, my first year running the gym, like, I think I made 30 or 40 grand. Like, I barely scraped by, but I was happier than ever.
So Nez, start a boot camp with me.
Yep. So
next.
So I'll never forget. She said to me, I've got some slam balls. I've got some skipping ropes. Here's a list of 10 women's names. Message them. I messaged every one of them and I said, I'm going to be running a boot camp at Nobby's Beach, Monday morning, 6 a.m., $10.
Not getting marketing early.
$10. $10 cash. And 8 of them showed up. I took a photo and I was on fire. Like, I loved it so much. I couldn't stop thinking about it. Because I was connecting, I was serving, I was outside, I was in, we went for a swim afterwards. Like, life was good.
And that was the first dollar you ever made in business where you took someone's money.
I took $80 on that day. I'll never forget it. 8 $10 notes. And I remember being so proud. I thought that was a lot of money, like for a week, And then I was like, okay, I'm going to come back on Wednesday. So we did 3 days a week. And then all of a sudden they were like, let's go. We want to come every day. And then all of a sudden they were like wanting morning and afternoon. And then I realized, hey, what if we actually had a space? So I remember saying to some of the girls, what if I opened a gym?
Can I just jump in there?
Yeah.
Like, any studio owner listening, like, that is the way you open a fucking gym.
Yeah.
You just don't sign a commercial lease.
Oh my God, no.
Buy the equipment with no experience. Don't know what you're getting into. all of our locations started at a community hall or outdoor center.
Yeah.
It is such a great way to like cash flow the business before you borrow $500,000.
Yes. Oh my God. And you got to test it. You got to experiment. Do I like coaching? Do people like being coached by me?
Yeah.
You know, can I coach? Like, and this, I wasn't even a qualified PT at the time. I literally said to my friend, no, back then I didn't know.
Illegal.
I literally said to her, I'm not qualified and I don't know anyone. And she said, well, I'm a PT. You could sort of help me. I mean, I had years and years and years of CrossFit experience, but I had no qualifications, no money or anything. And then we took it from the boot camp and I was just so fired up. As soon as I started talking about this gym, everyone was like, yes, we want it. So then I started looking at spaces. When I locked in the space, from that point, we had a 2 or 3 month sort of waiting period. I then signed up to do my Cert 3 and 4 in fitness. So this was my routine for like 12 months. I would wake up, I would drive straight to the beach. I would coach everyone for free because I was trying to get my name out there.
Yep.
And then I would drive to TAFE and I would do TAFE all day. I would drive to work because I went back and worked for my boss for a little while and did some data entry just to get some cash to fund the gym. Then I would
that's why you don't burn bridges.
That's right, exactly. And he said that to me actually. He still to this day, every time we're in the paper, anytime we're on the news, he'll take a photo of it, print it up, put it on the fridge. Like he's always so proud of me. So I worked there, and then at night I would go and do TAFE, and then I would wake up the next day, do it all again. I did TAFE 3 or 4 nights a week, every second weekend, did that for 3 or 4 months, like absolutely exhausted. Then I opened the doors. We opened the doors with like 50 members, and then it just took off from there.
So 50 members. What year was that?
2014.
14?
Yeah.
And you peaked at 500 members? Roughly?
Yes. Yep. 500 each location.
So you had 1,000 members.
Yep.
So 500 in Newcastle,
Yep.
500 in Maitland.
Yeah.
So that's an extraordinary accomplishment.
Yeah.
I've rarely met another gym owner who had 500 members in one location. I'm actually one of them.
Sorry.
509. 509. Was it 500 across both?
5 across both, sorry.
Yeah. So 250
yeah.
each.
250 at each location.
Okay.
Yeah.
You had Newcastle for a few years.
Yeah.
It went gangbusters.
Yeah.
And then you effectively opened Maitland.
Which ruined me.
Ruined you.
Yeah.
Second location. Can be hard.
So, I remember going to this event, listening to this woman speaking about how she opened multiple locations and it was the worst thing that ever happened to her. This was before I opened. And she was talking about how different locations, very different. It's not just like cut and paste. And I remember sitting there thinking, that's not true. That's not going to be my story. It's not going to, my story is going to be different. And then, boy, did I learn the hard way.
So you heard that.
Yeah.
At that point, you had already committed to second
Yes,
location.
yes.
You were excited. You were ready and ready to go.
Yeah.
And nothing could have stopped you.
Yeah, exactly. But then everything stopped me. Took us 6 months to get our DA approved. We fought heaps of community issues with car parking, which was insane because there was like 22 car parks on the site. Then COVID happened. So we went into a lockdown. I literally was open for 6 months and then we went into a lockdown.
Yep.
My rent on that space was $100,000 a year. It was huge. My landlord did not budge an inch. He did not give any sort of grace. Whereas my landlord down here, 50-50, he said to me, you pay 50%, I'll give you 50%.
It's fair.
Yeah, which was fair. It was just that opening Maitland. And funnily enough, looking back, I can see I opened Maitland from a place of ego, not so much genuinely being ready to. I wanted the big venue. I wanted to have one in every city in Australia. I wanted them to be pink.
So you wanted to franchise?
Yes.
Roll these out across the country?
Yeah. I had 2 guys from Sydney who were business developers come to Newcastle in December 2019. We were talking about franchising the business. They were going to buy into it. They'd opened, they were basically franchisees in lots of different businesses.
Yep.
And they were going to buy into it and we were going to open 18 around Australia in 2020. Right. And we were writing this deal back and forth, went through the solicitors. And then by the time January came around, because we were sort of in negotiations October, November, then all of a sudden it was Christmas. So it was like, let's just, and then all of a sudden January, there was like this China virus this virus in China. And then I was like, oh, whatever. Then all of a sudden gyms in the US are closing in February. Boom, gyms are closed in March.
So you could have had 18 list homes in one year.
They were going to fund it. And they were going to buy into 49%. And I was very bitter about that for a long time.
At that point, opening up Maitland for ego.
Yeah.
What about your ego made you make that decision? Because I had 7 locations and I was like, I've got 7 locations.
Yeah, that was what I wanted to do. I wanted to tell people I had multiple locations. I did want to genuinely help people and I did want to employ more women because the women that worked with me loved their jobs. I did want to create more of those, that model. I wanted it to go all around Australia, but deep down, I wasn't really ready. I didn't do enough risk analysis. I didn't think about the fact, prepare for any sort of hardship or anything. I was very naive. I went 3 or 4 years in business and I was just kind of like money-making machine. I was like, we're just going to do this again.
Yeah, I'm going to make 100,000
Yeah.
per location.
Yeah. It was
Talk
the
to your
first
uncle.
time I ever experienced, like, obviously COVID was an unprecedented time, but, I never once ever thought anything like that could happen, and I wasn't prepared for it. I wasn't even prepared for a month of closing.
The location things are so interesting. Like, so we had locations 7 kilometers apart. One was at Adamstown, very well.
Yes,
It's like a uni area.
Yeah.
One was at Cardiff. It was families. And they could have been on different fucking planets.
Wow.
And I know the difference between Maitland and Newcastle.
Yeah.
Worlds apart.
Yeah, totally
Like
different.
socioeconomic status,
Yes.
the clientele,
Yes.
how many of them will bring their kids.
Yes,
Like,
exactly.
so different.
Maitland was so different. Everyone wanted creche. It was a heavy mums and bubs area. A lot of one-income families, whereas Newcastle, it was younger, uni students, young professionals, a lot of expendable cash. So to be honest, in hindsight, I would have probably been better off to just keep Newcastle and pump it and just have really just have a lot of freedom and enjoy my life. But Maitland kind of ruined it.
Shiny object syndrome.
Yeah, 100%.
It gets us all. It's such an interesting thing, because I got very, very, very strong opinions on franchising, and I'm not going to get into it right now.
Yes.
But it is serious fucking business.
Yeah.
It is. You are asking someone to invest $500,000.
Yeah.
In your location that's worked in Newcastle.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean it's going to work in Perth.
Yeah.
100%. It's very
Yeah.
We opened up 7 and all the openings were different.
Yeah.
With a different amount of members.
Yeah.
All had different clienteles, all had different ads at work, we all had different staff, different values, and it just got so big.
Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah. And it's just what we were doing at the end, we would open up one because we'd lose members at another. And we're just kind of out opening our church.
Yeah.
We learned our lesson the hard way.
Yeah.
But it was the best thing that ever happened to us.
Yeah. And you know what? That was meant to happen for me. Like at the time of the lockdown, the closures, I went through a breakup at the same time. That was the catalyst that put me into all of this emotional healing on myself. That was the first time I really had time and space to sit with myself and process. So it all worked out exactly as it was meant to, but it was just an interesting lesson.
So Lyceum, 2 locations, 10 staff, multi-million-dollar business. Everything changed very, very quickly from I'm going to have 18
overnight
to COVID to I don't want to be a gym owner anymore.
Yes, yeah.
What was that transition like for you?
Yeah.
Compared to what you do now, which is more like emotional intelligence coaching and leadership.
Yeah, well, obviously it was a really tough time. Like we were a very strong community, but it was, obviously with how much fear there was in the media, it broke us apart. And it was a huge, for me, I had to really, really work through a lot of stuff within myself. And, the first lockdown, I think we were closed for 4 months. The first lockdown, you couldn't do anything. You couldn't even go outside and train. So I literally read every book I could, listened to every podcast. I got onto the holistic psychologist who changed my life, and just I was really, really starting to understand, I actually got some childhood trauma here.
It's probably the first time you had time alone.
100%. Actually is. I really realized I had a lot of childhood trauma that I just didn't realize. I didn't know how to communicate well. Every time I would get into some sort of conflict or argument, I would project and go into shame. And those things made it really hard to keep a relationship. So I was sort of really working on myself and learning a lot of this, which was great. But then I would go into the gym. I was sort of bouncing between both things, trying to keep this community going. Everyone looking to me for the answers. And I'm like, I don't know anything more than you do. And it was open, close, measurements, masks, all of that. I survived 1 year. And then I think we came into the second year and we had another lockdown. And this was when the vaccine mandates came in.
I think the second lockdown was worse.
It was worse.
You could go outside and you could train one person at a time.
Yeah.
And for that, Mitch and I were training. We had 4 trainers doing 20-minute one-on-one sessions from 5:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m.
Yeah, wow.
It was the most exhausting period of our life.
Oh, we were the same. It was crazy. So, and I remember shutting up the gyms and then going out, we were outside. And I remember I didn't even go into the gym for months. And then, as I remember sitting at the bars with Ash and talking, the gyms were meant to reopen end of October or something. And I was sort of like, I don't think I can do it. I just want to close up and just be done with it. I just want to sell all the gear and just forget about it. And it was only for the lease at Maitland that I couldn't do that.
And there's nothing wrong with that too. People look at the business closed or you exited or you sold. You go through seasons in life. You had them for 10 years.
Yeah. I never once had any shame around that. I honestly was like, you know what? This has been a crazy time of year. The only reason I ever fought for the gym was for the girls, for my staff. Because I had full-time staff, I had part-time staff. That was the only reason. I had no shame about closing up. I literally didn't. I was like, you know what? Fuck you. I have slogged my guts out on this, like in this place. I have raised over $500,000 for charity. I have like done so much for this community. This has broken me. Like I'm walking away. Like at that point, I was like, my sanity means more than anything.
And in that period when you had the gyms and you closed them, you created that community.
Yep.
Sometimes the community turns its back on you.
Oh, so many people did.
And that's where it's like it's hard for a gym owner to still today get that cancellation email.
Yeah.
It's a tough business.
Totally.
Like, it really is.
And that's why I was just at the point where I was like, I can't do this anymore. I don't want to. And then I was telling my accountant and she said, I think you should try and sell it. And I was like, who would buy this after 2 lockdowns? Like, she was like, you'd be surprised. Anyway, I put it out there. I had all these buyers interested. So I thought, okay. So I worked at it for 6 months, built it up, sold it successfully, got out. And then in that period, then transitioned to doing online coaching, doing what I do now.
And what you do now is emotional intelligence.
Yes.
A very, very broad, vague term that no one knows what it means.
Yes.
What does it mean?
So emotional intelligence is basically the ability to attune to, understand emotions, your emotions, my emotions, and to actually regulate them within your body so that you don't act in a way that you later regret or feel shame about. It is important for relationships, for leadership, for parenting, for friendships, anything where there's human and human, two humans, it's important. Because ultimately, we are human beings that feel emotions every single day. And if we feel an emotion we don't feel comfortable with, we do one of two things. We either get big and loud and aggressive, or we shut down, pull away, close off. And both of those things impact negatively a relationship.
So in hindsight, looking back, when you had Lizone, 2 gyms, 10 staff, 500 members, did you have good emotional intelligence?
No, zero.
So give me an example of what you did then that maybe you're not proud of.
Yes.
Or back on that you didn't realize, like, hey, like I was reacting, projecting, and just not being a good leader.
Anytime, like now, realizing this, so anytime anyone would give me feedback that I didn't like.
So coach, member.
Yep. Mostly coaches. Yeah, even some members.
Okay.
But it was mostly my coaches. Anytime they disagreed with something that I said or gave me feedback on something, I would go into a shame spiral and I would project. I would like get loud and aggressive and very defensive. An argument. Like I would sort of push back and I would go into authoritative leadership and I would completely diminish them.
I'm the boss. This is what's happening.
100%.
Okay.
And that just left people feeling really unseen, unsupported, not valued, So, I had no ability to take feedback.
Did you have any staff leave that you think it was because of the
Definitely.
Okay.
Definitely. God, yeah.
So there's lots of gym owners listening that might not be the best
100%.
leaders and they have a high turnover of staff.
Yeah. Oh.
So what happened in that situation where a staff member left?
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is people never leave their jobs for the reasons that they tell you, ever. So people would say, oh, I'm going off to, study this, or oh, I'm going off to do this, or I'm going back to teaching. But really, now looking back, I can easily see that there was some sort of interaction that triggered them into their shame or their inadequacy or something like that. And that's why they left.
It's interesting. Like I hear it all the time.
Yeah.
Like, I can't find good staff.
Yeah.
I just can't find good staff.
Yes. Yeah.
What makes you think you deserve good staff?
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite sayings.
Yes.
Like, why do you deserve good staff?
Yeah.
Why would someone work for you?
Yeah.
Why would someone effectively do you a favor?
Yeah.
And if you're a terrible leader, you react, like it's just not going to happen. So when I was much younger, like 10 years ago, one of our best friends, Ryan, worked for us.
Yep.
And we used to clash like a motherfucker.
Yeah.
Like I love him. He's a great guy, great friend. At my wedding, coming to my baby shower in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But we worked together and we were just like a fucking just clack heads.
Yeah.
And it was my fault.
Yeah.
It was 100% my fault. He just like I delivered a message.
Yep.
In a way that he didn't like it.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, it's the truth.
Yes, yeah.
And it's the old thing, like do you care more about the message or how it's saying it?
Yeah.
I used to get so annoyed that sometimes to this day it pisses me off. like this is the message.
Yeah.
Like no matter how I say it, like that's what it is.
Yeah, yeah. Well, do you know what I find in leadership? Most people don't realize how much they're coming up against people's mother and father wounds. So in childhood,
so you always mention mother and father wounds.
Yeah.
So what are these?
So when you're growing up from 0 to 7, 10 years old, you are looking like you're developing emotionally and physically, right? So a baby's born. It can't even hold its head up. It's just a blob, right? It's laying there. And then all of a sudden it rolls over and then all of a sudden it holds its head up and then it can crawl and then it starts to walk and then it starts to run. So those developmental stages physically, we also have emotionally. So we also emotionally develop. And the way that we do that is through our parents. We're constantly looking to our parents for a few things. Am I safe? Am I loved? Am I supported? Am I understood? Am I worth spending time with? So a lot of our worthiness and our feeling of our ability to feel like we're good enough comes from them. And when they're unavailable in some way, so a lot of people mistakenly think my parents loved me, they supported me, they took me to sport, they were home, cooked dinner every night, all that sort of stuff. They think, well, why I've had a good childhood, right? But deep down, there are so many little things that happen that we don't realize reinforces our unworthiness. So I think what happens is a lot of the time, women have a wound with their mother that they feel like their mother thinks they're not good enough, and men have it with their father, or vice versa. And so when you're in leadership, especially men, right? If you're in leadership and you're just like, because I'm very direct like you, if you're very direct giving someone feedback, that can poke on that wound from mother or father. So I guarantee your friend probably has a critical mother or father. And when
I'll ask him.
You ask him, and I guarantee you when you're talking to him and giving him feedback, that's what's coming up for him, that memory and that pain.
I could have just been a mean dickhead too.
No, I guarantee you, if you ask him, it'll be a mother or father wound.
Yeah. So when like in leadership in business, when you are giving someone critique, like how would you go about it today compared to how you did it back in the day?
So emotional intelligence, right? So I'll give you a good example. My my manager, Ash, she worked with me for 7 years. I remember one day we were trying to like go to another level of like excellence, like trying to really go to this next level. And I used to only give feedback when things were going wrong. So, and it wasn't really working well. So we sort of decided we would have an approach where we'd give some sort of feedback every day, some sort of positive reinforcement and some sort of feedback on the coaching. And so what I noticed is I would go up to her and give her feedback straight after the class, and she would avoid it. She would avoid me. And I went to assumption, thinking she doesn't care. She doesn't want a good job. She doesn't want to do a good job. She doesn't care about what I think. But then when I actually took myself out of that and I noticed, I was like, okay, I'm noticing she probably feels a bit of shame when I come up and give her feedback. So what I did was I had a conversation with her. I said, hey, I'm noticing that when I want to come and give you feedback, you tend to avoid my eye gaze, or you sort of wander off cleaning and you sort of seem like you're not very present. Like, what's going on? And she shared with me something that I wasn't even aware of. She said, well, Nerida, when you come and give me feedback, there are people here at the gym stretching and cooling down, and I feel like they think I'm getting in trouble. And I was like, wow, I had no idea. What do you need then? She said, I'm open to feedback, but I would rather you wait until everyone's gone.
Yeah.
I was like, mind blown. No problem.
So easy.
So easy. And then as soon as we made that one change, I could give her feedback and she was like, no worries. So got it.
Yeah.
So, if you don't understand your staff and the little things that you don't even notice that is going on for them, you will not be able to lead them in a way that really lifts them up.
Yeah. It's just like setting clear expectations.
Well, it's not so much just clear expectations, it's understanding the other person as well, right? And it's understanding, well, what do they need in order to fulfill those expectations? What makes their mind tick? What do they like? If they're a perfectionist, right? And you sometimes give them feedback, do they go into a shame spiral? Are they, because, a lot of perfectionists spend so much time rather than just executing, right? Do you really want a staff member that's a perfectionist that sits and reads an email 10 times before they send it to you? No. So it's like when you start to understand your staff better, you start to kind of go, oh, I see these little traits. How can I work with them to help you so that we can work together so that you're productive and efficient, you're having a good time, and I'm getting what I need done. So you can either step into authoritative leadership, which is just tell people what to do.
And no one respects you.
Or you can go into embodied leadership, which is you're embodied as that leader where you're emotionally intelligent and you're understanding that people have wounds, people have inadequacies, people have critical thoughts of themselves. Like, it's a part of the human experience.
Yeah. I think for us in our business, we've always just tried to create the win-win.
Yeah.
And if you create a win-win and always assume that the person is going to act in their best interest.
Yes. And that's a hard one when you're triggered.
But if you assume that, then
assume positive intent.
You can understand why they made that decision.
Mm-hmm.
And I think just like it's an Alex Hormozi quote where it's like it's hard to hate up close. And if you really see someone for who they are, what they've been through, it's almost impossible to hate them. And if you
Mm.
understand why that staff member was late, and
Yeah.
maybe they were rude to a
Yeah.
member,
Yeah.
and you understand they had a horrible night before,
Yeah.
it doesn't excuse the
Yeah.
behavior,
Yeah.
but it's not like you're angry anymore. You're just
Yeah.
like, hey, this can't happen again.
Yeah. It's empathetic leadership, right? It's like, hey, I can see you're really having a hard time right now. And two things can be true at the same time, right? We can have empathy for our people and we can set boundaries. But what a lot of people do is they do one or the other. They completely have too much empathy and they're like, oh my God. And then there's no boundaries and leadership. Or they go into like completely harsh, non-emotional. And it's like, just get your work done. And then the person's like, what the fuck? My dad just died.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like two things can be true at once. And I think that's what I really want more leaders to embody is this like understanding people on a bigger level. Because I'll tell you what, my staff at Lasom, like what in your experience when you had your gyms, what was the sort of average time span of a coach working with you?
We were so lucky.
Yeah.
Like we had no churn.
Yeah, great.
We had 2 staff members in 9 years that worked for us and stopped working for us.
Yeah.
And both occasions they moved away.
Yeah,
so I think, I don't know. We just got lucky.
Yeah.
And I think it all starts from like the actual hiring.
100%.
So we predominantly hired through our members. So our members would
I
love
was the same.
product, they would get a result, they'd go get qualified.
Yeah.
And we would encourage them to get qualified.
Yeah.
And then like there's so much they don't need context.
Yeah.
You don't need to tell them the values of the place when they train for 12 months.
Well, they're already integrated.
Yeah.
Well, and that's why you would have had such success. I was the same. Like Ash was with me 7 years. You know, I had the gyms 8 years in the end. Like she was right with me to the end. I had lots of stuff that were with me for years. And lots of members that were there for years. Whereas you go around and you see lots of, and a lot of those people that have left, but once the gym closed or it was sold, you see so many of them, they've tried one gym, stayed there 6 months, gone to another one, like they've hopped around, right? And I think that that's a really interesting thing to notice. And I think that if your staff, if you are having a churn, there's something there that you need to look at. Because I think when you lead people well, they stay.
You have high staff churn, you're going to have high member churn.
100%.
As simple as that.
It's the same thing.
And also, we never went through the experience of a trainer leaving and starting a business down the road.
Yeah.
Which happens all the time.
Yeah, it happened to me a couple of times.
And those trainers, they take half your members.
Yeah.
And it happens to people over and
God,
over.
you got lucky if that never happened to you.
Not once.
That's amazing.
Not
Wow.
once. And I think it was just because, I don't know.
Well, you probably had a very good culture, very good community. Yeah.
I think just our first location taught me so many lessons.
Yeah.
From like to open up location 2
Yeah.
to then open up number 7, but also it was my relationship with Ryan that really changed the way that I'd lead people. And it was from just like the authority,
yes,
just like, hey, do this, fucking get it done.
Yeah.
I don't care,
Yeah.
like no excuses.
Yeah.
To really understanding people, and more importantly, understanding that people aren't motivated by money.
No way. No way.
Like understanding, well, what is their love language?
Yeah, love language. Yeah,
And,
yeah.
like, some people want time off work.
Yeah.
Some people want money.
Yeah.
Some people just want a pat on the back.
Yeah.
And it's just so interesting in regards to like if you are managing 10 staff,
you've
got 10 different love languages.
100%.
And you have to like speak to them differently.
Yes.
Even the way you communicate.
Yeah.
Some we had staff members that like they hate phone calls. Because you'd ask them a question and they felt like they had to respond in the moment.
Yeah.
Where if you sent them a text message, they would send you a really detailed response back.
Yeah.
So it's just understanding how to communicate with them.
Yeah. So true, isn't it? Like I found that with my staff. Like I would give them the option, like, what do you prefer? And some of them were like, I want time off. Some of them I want money. Some of them, I want to be acknowledged a certain way. I want a title. Yep. You know, it's so fascinating. We're all so different in the way that we want to be appreciated, which is, you know, human beings, we're all so different. So I think that all these things, these are the things I'm really passionate about because it's people. And when you connect with people and you know how to treat people and you know how to make them feel worthy, you know, seen, valued in the workplace, they will do their best work for you. They will do their best work. Like Ash literally cared about the gym like it was her own. You know, right, like we're in the thick of it, the last few months of Lasom lockdowns. You know, she's spending so much time at home thinking about what are we going to do? How are we going to get this business back up off the ground? Like what employee does that, right? So, and it was because we had such a good culture there.
Yeah, so interesting. We've got about 28 staff at the moment on our team.
Yeah.
It's a big team. And
at the moment in this business, yeah.
And it's getting bigger every single week. More and more sales reps are coming on.
Yeah.
And what my job now is to manage the managers effectively.
Yeah.
So like even that's different where like they're effectively reporting from people under them. And
Yes.
like it's like a layer of separation of like,
Yeah.
hey, I've noticed this person's doing this. Can you
Mm.
please deliver this message?
Yeah.
I guess it's the
Amazing.
next stage of just like
Yeah.
becoming a leader.
Self-leadership. Yeah. Self-leadership.
I think the biggest thing too is just like just lead by example.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
As in, I
definitely.
think like at the core, like maybe I wasn't emotionally intelligent.
Yeah.
Maybe I yelled at Ryan too many times.
Yeah.
But at no point could Ryan say like, hey, he doesn't care about this business.
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
he isn't willing to do something that I'm not willing to do.
Yeah. So
And I
true.
think that if you lead from the front
Yeah.
and push from the back,
Yeah. Yeah.
lead from the front,
Yeah.
fucking charge through the wall,
Yeah.
and then you have to pull people from behind. Like,
Yeah.
come on,
Yeah.
come with me on this ride.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah, I agree. And, you know, it's just such a fascinating thing, right? And it just makes, I love it because of what it does to yourself, right? Like, you know, people like are the reason that we're on this planet. Like it's bumping up against all these different people and having this experience with ourselves. Like, oh, how does this person make me feel? How does this person make me feel? Like it's such an interesting thing. And I find it fascinating, you know?
And like there was a situation a few years ago where I had a really bad experience. I worked for someone, not a very nice guy. And that ultimately led to me starting this business now.
Yeah.
And I think back on that interaction and think like, well, like, hey, if he treated me well,
yeah, you might not have been so.
I would have built this in there.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
I just think about like just how important people actually are.
Yeah, yeah.
And like
even those that you don't like.
Oh, no, it's more just like you can have one. You can like you can build trust for 5 years.
Yeah.
Have that one conversation where you've had a bad night.
Yeah.
You absolutely tear that person
Yeah.
a hole, completely out of line. They didn't deserve it.
Yeah.
They leave tomorrow.
Gone.
And imagine if you had that
100%.
moment where like Ash is one of your best friends.
Yeah.
Emotional intelligence is low. You come in, you blast her.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, she's like, think about how that would affect you.
She's very like, believe me, I don't even know how she stuck around with me for so long. She's very forgiving and accepting. Like, but yeah, 100%. Yeah, like it's so true.
So in terms of being emotional intelligent, like go back to self-leadership.
Yep.
So how does that impact your relationship with others?
Yeah. So I think self-leadership is a couple of things. It's one thing, it's about understanding how to feel what you're feeling. So if you are starting to feel dysregulated, if you're starting to feel annoyed, frustrated, like angry, upset, it's just being able to regulate that. So it's actually being able to process that in yourself without throwing it onto someone else. Like without going, that's called projection, right?
Going for a walk's amazing.
Yep, just big time. Get up, go for a walk. Listen to something, breathe. So it's emotional regulation. It's reflection, being able to reflect on yourself and do one of two things, right? Have accountability, but also have compassion. So all of the mistakes I've made, like, you know, we either tend to go into shame or blame. So we either go into full on shame, like, oh, that was all my fault. I'm such a bad leader. I can't do this. Or we go into blame. It's like, oh, he's such a fuckwit. She's such a bitch. She has not, like, you know, she doesn't listen, whatever. It's about finding the middle ground where it's like, okay, I probably didn't handle that very well. I probably could have done this, and this better. So accountability. And also maybe this is something for them to work on as well. Yeah. So I think like reflection is really, really important.
I'm amazed at how much people just don't reflect. They go through their entire life and never sit back and think, I handled that very poorly.
Yes. Oh my God. So many people don't. And do you know why? Interestingly, this is why. So there's like a scale of consciousness, right? It's like a map and it's a list of emotions. Okay. Now down the bottom, it's like broken up into 3. And down the bottom third are emotions such as shame, anger, fear, sadness, guilt, all those heavy, yucky emotions. In the middle tier, it's like emotions such as courage, willingness, acceptance, acceptance, willingness, and accountability. And then at the top, there's like enlightenment, joy, love, connection, freedom, authenticity. Now, the interesting thing, you cannot get up the top without working through down the bottom. So you can't even get, what's the middle tier? Accountability, right?
Yeah.
No one can show accountability until they've acknowledged and processed their shame and guilt. No one. And that was where I was at, right? 2020.
So a proud person never thinks they're in the wrong because they don't feel guilt or shame. They're never going to feel accountable.
No. The opposite. They actually feel such guilt and shame, they can't go there.
Because if they hold themselves accountable, they'd realize it would make them feel worse.
Yes, 100%. They cannot go into that emotion because it's so terrifying. So they'll do anything they can to stay out of it. And then that's what keeps you from the thing that you want, right? So let's just say you're an employee and you want to, sort of like improve in your business. You want to grow, but you haven't worked through your shame, so you can't take on feedback. Well, the fact that you can't take on feedback means you can't grow. Therefore, that's the thing that's going to stop you from getting promoted.
Yeah.
You're not ever open to feedback. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah.
So this is why this emotional intelligence is so important, because when you acknowledge, when I get feedback, I actually feel a lot of shame. I actually feel like I'm a really bad person.
If someone changed out the word for emotional intelligence for self-awareness, is that...
It's all the same stuff.
Yeah.
You can call it like this sort of stuff. Like for me, I get really frustrated that people want to box things up.
Yeah.
They're either like it's mental health or it's, self-development, personal development, growth, emotional intelligence. It's all the same stuff.
I guess for me, just so I understand it better.
Yes.
It's like if you have a really high level of self-awareness, you probably have very high emotional intelligence.
Yes, I would say so. Like, I think most people that are very aware, but what I do, okay, a lot of people are aware, but they don't actually execute. So a lot of people have the awareness in their mind that actually don't like feeling the feeling. Okay, so I'll give you a good example. I remember like 5 years ago when I went through my breakup, I went to a somatic therapist. Soma means body. And I remember her saying to me, I was like sitting there telling her about my breakup, blah, blah, blah. This is all happening. And she kept saying, where do you feel that in your body? Where do you feel that in your body? And I was like getting so frustrated. I was like, what the fuck does she mean? So when we're born, we have two things. We have a body, a physical body, and a consciousness, like a mind, a thinking mind. We are the ones that can make things mean something. We are the ones that go, oh, that's Jamie. He's married to so-and-so. And that's, he does this and he does that. Now, if those two things aren't integrated, we end up feeling very disconnected. So a good example of this, right, is I know someone's disconnected if they blow up and lose their shit because they haven't been able to go 10 steps back and go, oh, I'm actually noticing I'm starting to feel really angry.
Okay.
I'm feeling that pit in my stomach or I'm feeling that flash of red in my face.
So someone can be aware but not act on it and still explode.
Yes, because they might have the awareness later, but it's like they weren't able to check in with their body and feel something rising in them. That is emotional and somatic intelligence. That's where the mind and the body become one again.
Yeah.
Because as a child, all children are born with this, but then we disconnect as an adult and we go too much into our thinking mind. Most people think way too much. And what we actually need to do is we actually need to feel it in the body. So you think about it, right? It's no different to exercise. When you go to the gym, when you've been thinking heaps and then all of a sudden you go to the gym and you do a big workout. That's why it's like moving your body is like clearing the toxins, right? Energetically. But what happens is you need to be able to, like, say, for instance, you're sitting here and you've got call after call after call after call, and all of a sudden you're starting to feel really frustrated. If you don't know how to take yourself out of that and go and move the body to release some of that tension, the next person you get on the call with is going to cop it, right? So that emotional intelligence is like noticing, oh, you know what? I'm starting to feel really like tense and tight and like I'm feeling my chest is beating really hard and I'm feeling like I'm just like stressed and just really like, ugh.
I think walking is like my coping mechanism for everything.
Yeah, it can be anything, right?
Any level of feeling,
yeah,
I just go for a walk.
Great, and that's awesome. And so these are the things that we need. We need self-soothing techniques.
Yeah. So I love systems processes.
Yeah.
So what are some systems or processes, workbooks, worksheets to improve their emotional intelligence?
Great. So number 1 minute. If all you have is 1 minute, stand up and shake your body. Like jump up and down and shake your body as much as you can all over.
Yep.
Like literally do that. Do that right now.
I don't know if I can do that.
Let's do it with me. Ready? Like,
yeah.
Like you will, like, now I just feel like.
It just takes you out of the state.
Totally. It's a state change. If you got 10 minutes, go for a walk around the block. If you've got an hour, go and like do a workout. Go and like get on the mats and do some wrestling. Jump on a boxing bag.
About Tony Robbins before our podcast.
Yes.
And I know he jumps on a trampoline.
Yes.
Before he goes on stage.
State change. Primal.
Jumps on trampoline.
Yeah.
And shouts at the top of his lungs.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know why. I don't know how he's not trying to preserve his throat. But anyway. So yeah, all of this is just, it's understanding that connection between mind and body. Yeah. That's all it is. Most people don't have that. Most people spend all day, sit down, stand up, walk to the car, sit back down. We need to move our bodies in different ways, right? like for women, they need to move their bodies in circular motions, right? Like hips, opening neck, open the chest, you need to actually, because what happens is it creates more blood flow to those areas. And then all of a sudden your whole body feels lighter. And then what happens? This feels more open. And that's when you have all the ideas, everything dropping in.
It's like if you're about to get in an argument, go for a walk.
Yes.
Before you say something you regret.
Yeah. But also say like, hey, I'm noticing I'm getting really frustrated. I'm going to go for a walk so I can process this, and I'll be back to talk about this in 15 minutes. Don't just avoid it completely.
A good night's sleep, then have the conversation.
Yeah, exactly. But what a lot of people do is, and I don't know what your relationship with Ellen is like, but I often see two people find each other and fall in love, anxious and avoidant. So the anxious is someone who, when we're in conflict, when we don't understand each other, I need to talk things out and to figure out, I need to resolve it right here and now.
Yep. I'll chase it around the house.
Yeah, so you're the anxious one because I need to know we're okay, right? Yep. I need to resolve. Whereas the avoidance, like I need to take myself away from this. I need to process so that I don't say something I'm going to regret, but I don't want to talk about it again. Now, what the beauty of it is, this is the whole point of this work. It's all about evolving to become more whole. It's not like one is right and one is wrong. It's like both of you need to meet in the middle. So the anxious needs to learn how to leave some more time and space for the other one to have their process. The avoidant needs to learn, I can take my time and space, but I've got to come back within 24 hours and still talk about
it. I'm over it 30 seconds later.
Yeah.
What's for dinner?
So it's like teaching people that the other person is mirroring back to you something you need to grow and something that you need to be influenced by, right? Yeah. We're never attracted to, think about it. You're never attracted to someone like you. Like you're a big burly man. You're not attracted to other big burly men. Ellen's a feminine, curvy woman. She's not attracted to other curvy women. So we're always attracted to the opposite of what we are. But the funny thing is that's not just physical. That's emotional as well.
Okay.
So you're, tough, strong, provider, resilient. She's like soft, feminine feelings, so you're actually attracted to the opposite of that. But what happens is when you get into conflict, you actually need to learn, I probably need to take on more of it's called accepting influence. I need to learn how to be a bit more like this person because that's where I'm going to grow and become more whole.
Well, with Mitch and our business partnership, we are very, very different.
Yep.
And sometimes I have to speed him up.
Yes.
To slow me down.
Yes.
And our frustrations often come, it's pretty rare, but it's like when I'm dead certain, like, hey, we got to do this. We're going to do it right now. He's like, can we wait 24 hours? I'm like, no. So yeah, it's interesting. One thing I've been doing lately that's really helped me is at the end of the day, it's so cheesy and so lame. I ask myself, am I proud of myself today?
Yeah.
In health, wealth, and relationships.
Yeah.
And health would be, did I go to the gym?
Yeah.
Did I not eat like an asshole?
Yeah.
Did I move the business forward with the one thing that matters
Love
most?
That.
And did me and Ellen connect?
Yeah.
And if it's yes.
Yep.
I'm happy.
And then what happens when it's a no?
Well, I beat myself up and try again tomorrow.
This is the issue. Okay. Can I pose something for you?
Sure.
Now, emotional intelligence is the ability to reflect and accountable without shame.
Well, it's not a shame thing. It's like, so for example,
you just said you beat yourself up.
For example, if it's health, right?
Yeah.
So I've noticed that if I eat shit at the start of the day,
that's
gone.
It's an
all out of self.
I'm the same.
So it's not being shame. It's just like my reflection is like, hey, like,
pull yourself.
Don't eat like that in the morning. Because you know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So I think just like back to awareness, having that system, like, okay, like what went wrong today?
Yes. Yeah.
And then identifying patterns.
Yeah.
And then making a change.
Yeah. So, okay, that's great. Like the accountability to go, all right, tomorrow I need to eat some salad. I need to make some steak.
Yeah.
I need to clean it up a bit, right? That's accountability, but with compassion. Whereas what a lot of people do is they go into a full shame storm where they're like, oh, I'm such a fat bitch. I'm this, I'm that. I'm never going to lose this weight. Why do I eat sugar all the time? Like, I'm so you know what I mean? I'm never going to find a partner or whatever it is, right? I'm speaking from some of my experience. That's some of the thought process I have. And so the funny thing is when we're in that shame spiral, we're only perpetuating more shame. So we need to learn how to bring compassion to that, pull ourselves through with accountability without going into a shame spiral. That honestly, when it comes to emotional intelligence, it's the number one thing I see in entrepreneurs that gets them stuck. They go into a shame spiral and they do not know how to get themselves out of it. And you think about it, right? You show up here every single day, 9 to 5, trying to move the business forward, with one thing. If you're in a shame spiral for 24, 48 hours, you're not getting much done. So that's why people need to do this work, because you will actually be more productive, efficient, and successful when you know, oh, I can pull myself out of this. And instead of this lasting 2 days, it lasts an hour, and then I'm back to working and being productive.
It's interesting, right? Because like running, if you look at business and break it down into the logical steps, it's not hard. Generate leads, make sales, fulfill, be a nice person.
Yeah.
So then like, if you know what you have to do and you don't do it, well, then what's holding you back?
I'll tell you what, people don't want to feel a feeling. So this is a great opportunity for me to share something personal. We were just chatting earlier about how I came out last week and we had a conversation that was very powerful for me. But we've been having these conversations for a while now. We've talked on the phone. We've talked on podcasts. You've sent me so many free resources. Do you know what happens for me every time I see your big spreadsheet? What do you think I feel?
I don't know what that means. I feel stupid.
Yeah, I feel stupid. I feel inadequate. I feel overwhelmed. So interestingly, I'm in a place in my business where I've had some success because I know what I'm talking about. I know I can speak, but now I've got to take this and package it up, put it into a course, and then I've got to learn how to do these ads. Like I've got to do stuff that I'm not good at. So every time, and I noticed this morning when I sat down and I got to open the Facebook ads manager and I was like, I'm going to get better at doing these ads. Do you know what happened? I opened it up, I saw it, and I was like, oh, I might just check my phone. I might just get on Instagram. I might just go and get a coffee. I might just put a load of washing on. That is all me not wanting to feel that inadequacy. But today, and I already knew this was going to come up. I just sat there and I was like, it makes sense that when I see this stuff, I sometimes feel overwhelmed. But it's okay for me to feel this feeling. I'm just going to take a few deep breaths. And I'm just going to take it one bit at a time. I'm just going to read through it. And if that's all I do today, that's okay. So I'm just allowing that emotion to be there. I'm just like, okay, this feels hard. Breathe. And then I go back and I'm like reading and I'm like, okay, this isn't so bad. And then all of a sudden, because you've sent me some stuff in the past, so I went back and looked at that again, had that feeling again. And I was like, okay, that's okay.
People just avoid things they don't know how to do.
Well, it's because they don't want to feel the feeling. I hate feeling inadequate. I hate feeling overwhelmed. I'm not a smart I'm not a book smart person. I'm not a mathematical person, right? So I have to work hard to teach myself that. Whereas some people that are very mathematically minded might look at what I do and go, oh my God, how do you contain all that information? How do you talk like that? We all have different strengths and weaknesses, right?
Yeah.
But the beauty is, can you lean in rather than lean out? The leaning out is I'm avoiding it. The leaning in is I'm going to learn this.
Yeah, just being self-aware. Hey, I feel this.
Yeah,
but I don't know how to do it.
But it's okay for me to feel it. I don't need to run from this or avoid it.
Yeah.
It is the number one thing keeping entrepreneurs stuck. Number one. Paralysis by analysis. Like it's,
ultimately fear of failure.
Yeah.
Fear of what happens if people think I'm stupid or I go back to my job or whatever the case may be.
Well, all of those are the result of the thinking mind, but what's actually coming up is the feeling first, right? The feeling comes up of like, oh, and then all of a sudden that's where the head goes, but it's noticing the feeling first. If you learn how to feel that feeling and let it be there, the thinking goes away.
Yeah.
I promise you.
I just find like whenever I feel anything outside of my usual self, it comes down to like I've treated myself physically poorly. Like I haven't slept well, haven't eaten well, I haven't exercised. And then I'm more likely to feel that feeling more.
Yeah, for sure. Look, all that stuff does play a part. But I also know lots of people who really look after themselves and still are crippled when it comes to showing up online and trying to build their business. So, some people, that's enough. But some people have years and years and years of shame that they've never processed.
So showing up online, what's your thoughts around that? Why are people so scared of picking up the phone, speaking to the camera and sharing their thoughts?
Because they're afraid of that mother or father wound being poked. Most people I talk to and I say, okay, what do you think might happen if you go online and they go, oh, well, I think so-and-so is going to say that she doesn't know what she's talking about. She's not smart enough. She's not qualified enough. She's not the real deal. And I'm like, okay, when was the first time you ever heard someone say something like that to you? And they go, oh yeah, I remember when I was 6 and I wanted to go to school and like do this thing. And my dad said to me, you're not smart enough to do that. Oh, I remember when I was 5 and I wanted to do a little lemonade stand out the front. And my mum said to me, you can't do that. All of a sudden it goes back. So that's what they're really afraid of. That feeling that has not been fully processed and let go of and is still in your body decades later.
Yeah.
Everybody has this. Everybody. Some people get it through entrepreneur, and everyone has an initiation of some kind. For some people, it's a heartbreak. Some people, it's entrepreneurship. Some people, it's parenting. Some people, it's the death of a loved one.
Yeah, so something has to bring it to the forefront again.
Every day of the week. Every day of the week. And if you don't, my spiritual belief is you live on this planet and you die completely unconscious, and you come back again and you go again. And you keep going until you finally wake up.
Yeah. Interesting stuff, Nerida. I love having you on the podcast.
I love being here.
Anyone that wants to connect with you, learn more about emotional intelligence, I know you do leadership workshops for the business. How would they contact you?
Yeah, go to my website. I'm helping people to become emotional intelligence coaches because I'm so passionate about this work. I help you go from 0 to getting your first client within 3 months. And I've got an amazing community. I just got off a call with them. We've got 40, 50 girls in there at the moment. So and cool. Guys as well. Majority of them are women, but there are a couple of guys in there. So yeah, my Instagram, Nerida Bint, or my website, send me a DM or an email, and I'd love to connect.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks so much, guys. Have a lovely day.